This is Mr. Eugene, and today we're talking about something that has confused, frustrated, and quietly broken good men in relationships for as long as relationships have existed. You come home after a long day, you haven't done anything wrong, you're not in a bad mood, you're not distant or dismissive, you sit down, you're present, you're available, and somehow, within an hour, there's a fight about something small, something that didn't need to become anything, something that on any other day would have passed without comment. And the most confusing part is not the fight itself, it's what happens after. She picks the fight, escalates it, gets you frustrated and reactive, and then within a short time, she's completely fine, relaxed, almost cheerful, acting like nothing happened. While you're still sitting in the wreckage of an argument you didn't start and don't understand. Every man in this audience has experienced this. Most have never understood it. And without understanding it, you cannot respond to it effectively. You just keep absorbing it, reacting to it, getting damaged by it, while she cycles through it and moves on. Today I'm explaining exactly why women pick fights with good men. The real psychological reason underneath the behavior. Why it happens more in certain moments than others, and what the most effective response actually looks like. Understanding this will not make you angrier. It will make you clearer. And clarity is always more useful than anger when navigating female behavior. Let me start with the foundation that explains everything else. Most men assume that when someone picks a fight, they want conflict. That conflict is the goal. That something is wrong and the fight is the expression of that wrongness. This assumption is almost always incorrect when it comes to women picking fights with men they're in relationships with. The fight is not the goal. The fight is the method. And understanding what the actual goal is changes everything about how you respond. Here is the core truth. Emotion is what women use to measure connection. Not just positive emotion, all emotion. Warmth, tenderness, laughter, these register as connection. But anger, frustration, intensity, these also register as connection. What does not register as connection is absence of emotion, neutrality, indifference, calm disengagement. For women, the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. And this is not a flaw in female psychology. It's a deeply wired relational mechanism. Women read emotional engagement as proof of investment, emotional disengagement as proof of disconnection. This means that when she picks a fight and successfully gets you angry, reactive, emotionally intense, she receives confirmation that you still care, that you're still invested, that you're still emotionally present in the relationship. Your anger, from her emotional framework, is evidence of connection. I know that sounds completely irrational from a male perspective, and from a male perspective, it is irrational. Men don't operate this way. When a man is done with something or someone, he becomes angry and expressive about it. When he's truly checked out, he goes quiet and stops engaging entirely. But women read male emotional withdrawal differently. They read your quiet, your distance, your calm disengagement as the relationship dying, as you pulling away, as the beginning of the end. And that reading creates anxiety, real anxiety, not manufactured drama, genuine fear that the connection is fading. And what does anxiety drive people to do? Seek reassurance. Try to confirm that things are actually okay. Try to verify that you're still there, still invested, still emotionally present. And the way female anxiety seeks that reassurance is by provoking a reaction. Any reaction. Because any reaction confirms investment, even an angry one. Let me show you exactly how this cycle operates so you can recognize it the moment it starts. You've had a demanding week. Work pressure has been significant. You come home tired. You're not cold or dismissive. You're just quieter than usual, more internal, processing things the way men process things, privately, internally, without needing to verbalize the process. She experiences your quietness as distance. Her emotional reading of the situation says something is wrong. He's pulling away. Is this relationship okay? The anxiety builds. She wants reassurance. She wants confirmation that you're still present, still invested, still connected. But she doesn't say that directly. She doesn't say, I'm feeling anxious about our connection and I need some reassurance. She finds something to be upset about. The dishes that weren't done, the plans that weren't confirmed. The thing you said 3 days ago that she's been sitting on. She raises it with an edge, a little more intensity than the situation warrants, watching for your response. If you respond with emotion, with frustration or defensiveness or intensity, she gets what she was actually looking for. Proof that you're still engaged, still reactive to her, still emotionally present. The anxiety dissolves. Within an hour, she's fine, moving on, cheerful even. while you're sitting there still processing an argument you don't understand, still feeling the residue of a conflict that seemed to come from nowhere, still confused about what just happened. She escalated, got her reassurance through your emotional reaction, and moved on. You're still carrying it because men take longer to return to emotional baseline than women do, which makes the whole experience feel particularly unfair and disorienting. This is the pattern. This is why it happens. This is what's actually operating underneath the manufactured conflict. Now let me explain why this happens more in certain moments than others. Because it's not random. There are specific conditions that trigger it. When you withdraw to process something internally, this is the most common trigger. Men naturally go internal when dealing with stress, problems, or pressure. They go quiet. They disengage from surface interaction while they work through something internally. This is healthy male processing. It's not withdrawal from the relationship, it's just how men handle internal load. But she reads the quietness as relationship withdrawal. Her anxiety spikes. The fight picking begins. When she's feeling insecure about something unrelated to you, her anxiety has a source that has nothing to do with the relationship. Work pressure, family stress, self-doubt about something, any internal insecurity. That anxiety gets displaced onto the relationship. The most emotionally significant thing in her life becomes the target for anxiety generated elsewhere. You become the available object for reassurance seeking, even though you're not the source of the anxiety. When the relationship has been in a low connection phase for external reasons, busy schedules, competing demands, less quality time than usual, she starts accumulating anxiety about the connection. The longer the low connection phase, the more her anxiety builds. The more it builds, the more likely she is to provoke a reaction to confirm you're still there. When she senses you pulling back for any reason, even if you're just tired or stressed, any real or perceived reduction in your emotional availability triggers the anxiety and therefore the fight picking. Understanding these triggers helps you see the pattern coming before it lands on you. Here's what most men do when this happens, and why it makes everything worse. The most common male response to manufactured conflict is defensiveness or matching emotional intensity. She escalates. You react. The argument becomes real. Both people say things that cause actual damage. The fight that started as anxiety management becomes a genuine relationship wound. Now there's real content, real hurt feelings, real things to resolve. The manufactured conflict became an actual conflict because of how it was responded to. The second common response is withdrawing further. She picks a fight, you go colder, more distant, more closed, which spikes her anxiety even higher because now her reading of the situation is confirmed. He is pulling away. And the cycle intensifies. The third common response is exhausted capitulation. You apologize for things you didn't do, agree with things you don't agree with, just to end the conflict. This provides her the emotional reaction she was seeking and teaches her that picking fights produces results. The behavior gets reinforced rather than addressed. All three responses miss what's actually happening and make the underlying dynamic worse. Here's what actually works. The most effective response to fight picking driven by anxiety is to address the anxiety directly rather than engaging with the manufactured content of the fight. When you feel the familiar escalation starting, when something small is being made into something larger than it should be, when the edge in her voice doesn't match the significance of what's being discussed, you recognize what's actually happening. This is not really about the dishes. This is about her needing to know I'm still here. And instead of engaging with the dishes, you address the real thing underneath. You stop. You look at her directly. You say something like, I notice things feel tense between us. Come here. Not defensively, not with frustration, with calm, deliberate presence. You pull her in. You make genuine contact. You provide the actual thing she was trying to provoke through the fight, which is your emotional presence and investment. The fight about the dishes evaporates because the dishes were never the point. Your presence was the point, and you just provided it directly without going through the conflict to get there. This works because it gives her what she actually needed without rewarding the fight-picking behavior as the method of getting it. You're addressing the real need while bypassing the manufactured conflict. The second part of effective response is becoming less emotionally reactive to her provocations generally. Not cold or dismissive, calm and grounded. Remember what she's reading. Emotional reaction as connection. Emotional absence as disconnection. This means your anger confirms investment, but so does your calm, warm, deliberate presence. The difference is that angry, reactive presence rewards conflict as the method of connection. Calm, deliberate presence rewards genuine interaction as the method of connection. When you consistently respond to manufactured conflict with calm groundedness rather than reactive emotion, you remove conflict as an effective tool for getting your emotional engagement. And when conflict stops producing the desired result, it gradually stops being the method used to seek it. She learns, not consciously but experientially, that picking fights doesn't get her what she needs, but genuine interaction does. That training takes time and consistency, but it works. The third element is being proactive about providing emotional presence before the anxiety builds to the point of fight picking. Most fight picking happens because emotional connection has been low and anxiety has accumulated. The deficit builds until the anxiety demands resolution. If you fill the connection account regularly before it depletes, the anxiety never builds to the level that produces fight picking. This doesn't require grand gestures. It requires consistent small deposits, deliberate attention, genuine engagement with her experience, regular confirmation that you're present and invested. For men over 50 who are tired, who have been through difficult relationships, who have accumulated their own exhaustion and armor, this can feel like too much, like you're managing her emotions on top of everything else. But consider the alternative. Constant manufactured conflict that drains you, damages the relationship, and never actually gets resolved because the real issue underneath is never addressed. Proactive connection deposits are genuinely less costly than reactive conflict management. They prevent the cycle rather than perpetuating it. Now let me address something important that men need to hear clearly. Understanding why women pick fights does not mean accepting fight picking as acceptable behavior indefinitely. Understanding the psychology explains the behavior. It doesn't excuse it. If she's regularly manufacturing conflict, if every period of your natural male quietness becomes a fight, if her anxiety management consistently comes at the cost of your peace and emotional stability, that is a real problem requiring direct conversation. Not in the middle of a fight. After, when both people are calm, you tell her clearly and without accusation what you've observed. When I'm quiet because I'm processing something, I've noticed it often leads to conflict between us. I want you to know that me going quiet sometimes doesn't mean anything is wrong with us. It means I'm working through something privately the way men do. I need you to trust that without needing to create conflict to confirm I'm still here. This conversation, done calmly and clearly, is more effective than any amount of reactive management of individual incidents. You're naming the pattern, explaining your internal process, reassuring her about what your quietness means, and asking directly for a different approach to her anxiety. Some women receive this clearly and adjust. The pattern shifts because the underlying fear has been addressed directly. Women who cannot receive this, who escalate even the calm conversation into conflict, who are unwilling to examine their own pattern when it's addressed respectfully, those women are telling you something important about whether genuine partnership is possible. The behavior can be understood without being endlessly tolerated. Explanation is not permission. Women pick fights with good men, not because good men deserve conflict, but because female anxiety seeks emotional confirmation, and conflict is one method of generating it. The anxiety is often real, even when the conflict is manufactured. The need underneath the behavior is legitimate even when the behavior itself is not. Understanding this allows you to respond to what's actually happening rather than what appears to be happening. To address the real need rather than engaging with the manufactured content, to provide genuine emotional presence as the solution, rather than reactive emotion as the accidental reward. Calm, grounded, deliberate presence is more powerful than reactive anger in these moments. It addresses the actual need. It removes conflict as an effective tool. It gradually shifts the dynamic toward genuine connection rather than manufactured crisis as the method of maintaining it. And that shift, when it happens consistently over time, produces something both people in the relationship actually want. Real connection, real peace, real partnership built on genuine interaction rather than manufactured conflict as the primary emotional exchange. Men, how many of you have recognized this pattern in your relationship without having the language to describe what was happening? Subscribe for the psychological clarity that turns confusing female behavior into something you can actually navigate with confidence.